here. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
So today we are talking about the differences between the two carriers that we work with, FedEx Custom Critical and Panther Premium Logistics, and why you should choose one. You and your teammate should choose one over the other. So our goal is really just to educate you and decide what's going to be best fit.
On the differences, but the main differences.
The main differences. First, let me talk about the main similarities. Neither are forced dispatch. With FedEx and or Panther, both are coast to coast. It's earning potential, freight opportunities, freight consistency, they're all pretty similar across the board, but the types of freight are a bit different. Dispatch is different and things like that. Equipment is a bit different. So Kelly's gonna
we do the girls get asked that a lot. Which one should I go with? How do I know which carrier is best for me? And I would say that again, like she said, they're both straight trucks. For the most part. We do have some tractors, only on the Panther side. I don't have any tractors at FedEx currently. But the straight trucks are the same. The main differences between them, again, Panther hauls dry freight. We do not have any refrigerated boxes, and FedEx is all refrigerated. All of our trucks are refrigerated. Not every load that you haul over there will require the reefer unit to be on, or the TCU, but your truck is going to have a TCU and is a refrigerated box regardless. So one is dry box, and one is always having your truck as a refrigerated box. Like Delina said, neither are forced dispatch, but the dispatch systems are completely different. They're polar opposites the way they work. At Panther, they work one truck, one load at a time. So you drop your freight, they call up or they offer you a load. You are the only game in town until you either accept and or deny that load or decline that load from them. So Panther works one truck, one load at a time, and their offer. You don't have to take it. You can negotiate it with any power that there might be, depending on what's in the load. Again, all of those things are done between you and the carrier. But at Panther, again, one load at a time, one truck at a time. FedEx, on the other hand, has a very complex dispatch system. It works a bunch of different avenues. FedEx has a load board. They have a dry load board. They have a refrigerated load board. Every truck in the fleet that has the same criteria in their truck, if they can haul it, it shows up on their load board as well. So you are not the only game in town with loads. You have to find your freight on the FedEx side way more than you do on the Panther side. You can get offered loads at FedEx over your C-Link or your Qualcomm or your electronic logging device, all the same thing. And those are also can be negotiated as well. But again, FedEx's system is using a load board for the most part. And that load board, you're awarded those loads based off proximity to the freight. How many loads you've run in the last 30, 60, or 90 days. Whether or not you can make it to a pickup on time. There are a lot of factors that indicate whether or not you will accept that. Whether you're the closest truck, whether you accept it in the first 10 minutes. There are rules that are a little more involved on the FedEx side as far as their freight system goes. You got to work a little harder.
You will always have an electronic device in your hands.
Absolutely.
At all times with FedEx.
So
you do not miss those opportunities.
Correct. So if someone says the main difference between the two is how much, I often say, how much time do you want to spend on this or a laptop or something like that? Because again, on the FedEx side, everything revolves around a load board and or you paying attention to what's out there for you to take. On the Panther side, you can run your freight and kind of wait for them to come to you with what's next. There are things you have to do. You want to position yourself correctly. You want to make sure that you have accommodated for where you're going to be at the end of the load. There's more to it. I don't mean to make it sound that easy, but it is completely different from the other. So if you're a person that is
a competitive nature, if you're a team that likes the competitiveness of it, you like that fast-paced environment, like Kelly said, how much do you want to be on that phone? FedEx is probably going to be a better fit. Or you've worked with reefer units in the past. We have students coming straight out of school. Of course, they never worked with a reefer unit. Makes them a little nervous, especially the negotiating and the load boards and all of that. Then Panther's probably going to be your best bet to get out there and at least learn the ropes, because especially if you're straight out of school, you still have to acclimate to learning how to be over the road for one. And so some teams do get stressed out. It's overwhelming for them. So it's really all going to depend on what you feel will work best for you and your teammate, as far as that goes. So.
You are going to run if you're coming out of tractor trailer or if you're coming out of anything like that, please understand, I'm going to say this and I mean it very well. You are going to run less miles. You're not chasing miles in these straight trucks. You're chasing revenue. It's revenue driven versus miles driven. So I want to make sure that that is completely clear to drivers when it comes to that. You will also sit weekends. More times than not. There are times that you may pick up a load on Friday that's going to deliver on a Monday and you're driving through the weekend. That is not always the case. So patience is key on either side when it comes to this, because expediting is a different animal than anything you've ever run if you're doing OTR, especially if you're coming out of a tractor trailer. So knowing that, you are going to strap and bar your freight. Unless you are not in the back and it happens to be a load that does that, you need to be prepared to secure your freight. We've had a lot of teams come out and go, I didn't know I had to touch this. You do. So let me just squash that notion that you may or may not have to. You will sometimes have to unload it. You will sometimes have to load it. You will always have to secure it 99% of the time. So whatever you do, be prepared for those things and be able to adapt to that, because that is part of it on either carrier. Neither of these carriers is going to be no touch. That's not how it works. So be prepared. And the service that we give, if the shipper requires you to do something like that, that's part of the gig. So especially on the FedEx side with their white glove service, some things are just automatically assumed. If the shipper asks you to do something like that, that's what we do, part of white glove service. On the Panther side, it's a little bit different. They let you know things up front, but don't think that you're not going to touch freight. You absolutely are. Again, that's driver's responsibility to make sure freight is secured when it's in the back of your vehicle. There are times where the shipper does it and they don't allow you to. That's a different story. Those are rare. It's not the norm. So just keep that in mind. And that's the same across the board. The dispatch system, I would say, is the biggest difference between the two carriers.
Another question I get asked a lot is, okay, if I decide to go with Panther now, can I switch to FedEx later? And you can, there are options. Just because you go with one doesn't mean you have to stay with them. But we do request that you're with that particular carrier for a minimum of 1 year before switching, so that you give it time. You learn to acclimate, learn the load board, the freight lane, whatever. And then you can switch. So just, I'm sorry, you can't just switch. You would have to apply with the other one, get approved with them, and then you could make the transition. So just because you go with one doesn't mean you always necessarily have to stay with that one. There are opportunities in the future to transfer to the other carrier.
We do want you to give that a shot, though, and make sure that because you could be jumping from the frying pan into the fire, going on the other carrier and realizing that the grass isn't always greener. So we want to make sure that everyone has a really good, solid understanding and has given it a good
year.
Try, yeah.
Give it a good year
before we'll swap you in-house with us. But again, hope that answers some questions about the difference. If you have any specific questions about anything I said about the systems and the difference between the two, please hit us up. Let us know. We're happy to answer those. We want you to have the best information possible to make sure you make the right choice with which carrier you want to go with.
Absolutely. Give us a call. We'll reiterate everything that we just said and talk more about the next steps. So,
absolutely.
All right. Chicks out.
Chicks out.
Bye, guys.